or both?
Just 1 second. My value.
Say again. Or just tomorrow?
Yeah, now you're going to say again.
Is Rabbi giving chizuk at the end of this year?
Is what at the end of this year?
Is Rabbi giving chizuk at the end of this year?
Yeah, Mitzvah. Is that a problem? Where's the Zachar B'Shama? That's all the way there. You're right. You're right. What do you guys say? Everybody's ready? Yes, Nussi. All right, Bolson, put your glasses on. Your eyes are going to fall out. That's what I'm saying. Put your glasses on. Well, if you do that, the eyes will fall out. All right. Okay. All right. Ready to roll? Wow, Rabbi Ratchkin, you live in a fancy place. Wow. Unbelievable. We're ready? Where's David Schwab? He comes up without a picture. What's the shot? He's got such... What's his problem? You can't come and say hi to us. What is that? Say hi to us. Good boy. All right. One more second. We'll wait. Stage fright. Yeah, it's true. David Schwab is very shy. It's true. Where's your Chavrusa David? Where's Rosenberg these days? Bahav. He's right. Mush Kallus, you know that we're related. My father just told me that we're actually related. And the Binyamin Goldberger was my moil, the Baba Rebbe's brother-in-law. I think that's your grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-uncle or something. I don't know. Look at this. Look who came to the shir. Oh, wow. Meilech. Givaldi. Great uncle. Givaldi. All right, Rabbi Say. Let me go. I was just going to tell the Olam one Nakuda about, I kept saying yesterday, there's one other Shaila that we didn't mention, which is true. I'm not going to be Myrich on it, Rabbi Say, because in Mitzvah Shem, it's a sugya that we're going to come back to when we get to the Inyanim of Chazara. Chazara is real Bishul, and when we get to real Bishul, then in Mitzvah Shem, we'll talk about, Rabbi Slansky, the voice is good. Everybody hears me perfectly? I'm heard well, yeah? Okay, good. I'm going to talk about it in Mitzvah Shem, we're going to learn Chazara, but just out the Shleimus Hadover, I feel a little bit guilty having talked about Chalent and returning a Chalent and getting the water in the Chalent. And there is one more Shaila that we didn't discuss, which is not our sugya, it's a sugya in Chazara, but just Laman Hashlamas Hadover, I'm going to say over the Shaila, and I'm going to say over the basic Yisai, and then in Mitzvah Shem, we'll learn Chazara and we'll appreciate it more. There's a sugya. We all know that there's a rule, in addition to what we call real cooking, what we've been discussing all these days, there's a sugya of fake cooking, which is the rules of Chazara. The Chazal were afraid that if you're going to return food, even if it's fully cooked, to an open fire, Chazal were afraid that a person is going to come to go and cook other things on Shabbos, because it's going to look like he's cooking, and that's the sugya of Chazara. In order to matir returning even fully cooked food to a fire, are all the t'nayim that we spoke about. It has to be a covered fire. Of course, the food has to be fully cooked, and you have to have had das to return it, and it probably has to be in your hand, and all these rules. And then you'll be legally allowed to return it on Shabbos. It was on a fire, you're just returning it to a fire, it's a covered fire. That's called Chazara, and then we don't see it as a new Ma'aseh Bishul. We see it as a continuation of the old, it's a hemshich of the old Ma'aseh Bishul. There's a Gemara in Shabbos that one of the reasons I'm mentioning is I know that some of them learned Daf Yomi, so you'll appreciate the Shaila. The Gemara is a suffix known as Pina min Mecham LaMecham. Let's say I took a cholent pot and I poured the cholent pot into another pot, and now I want to take that pot and return it to a fire. In other words, you have a cholent pot that was on the But it's not even such a crazy case. It could have a case like that, that a person has some massive challenge or something, and he has a massive pot, I'm saying, and then he realizes it's like taking up too much room on the blech or something like that. So he wants to take the chalent off, pour it now into a small pot. It's not even like some crazy case. And now he wants to take that pot and return it to the fire. That's a suffix in the Gemara. What's a suffix in the Gemara? The suffix is that maybe we don't see it anymore as a returning to the original matzif. The only time we can see it as a chazara is when I'm taking a chalent that was on the fire and returning her to the fire. But if I'm taking a chalent that was on the fire, then putting it into a new pot, so maybe that new pot is considered like a new matzif. Hagam, it was Yudas, and Hagam, it's going to a covered fire, and Hagam, it's fully cooked. But maybe there's a new thing that this doesn't look like the original pot that was on the fire. So since it's not a pot that was on the fire, it's considered a new type of a cooking, and therefore you'll come to make the mistakes on Shabbos. Is that clear what the Nidin is, Rabbi Favel? It's clear what the Shiloh of the Gemara is. That's the Shiloh of the Gemara is clear. So the Gemara is a suffix about this, of what's the din of Pina mimecham lemecham. Pina taken out from a mecham, from one pot to another pot. What's the maskan? What's the halach l'maisa? The halach l'maisa on this Shiloh is it's a suffix. Gemara doesn't answer. So what's halach l'maisa? We're going to learn the sugya and the Mishabura. To make a long story short, in Reish and Gimel and Zivkot and Mem Zayin, he sounds like it's a machlekes in the Rishonim how he paskin. Some say, well, it's a suffix in Hilchos Shabbos, so suffix Shabbos got to be machmir. Some say that no, suffix even though it's a suffix d'Rabbanan, it's not a shayla d'Oraisa. Therefore, you can be makel. It's a machlekes in the Psak Halacha. Ramosha actually is machmir. He says it's a shayla in Hilchos Shabbos. Ramosha based on Samach. He says you can't do it. You can't take chalent, put it into one pot, and then take that pot and put it back onto the fire, even though it's more convenient for you. So that's the psak of the Ramosha. Mishabura doesn't seem to sound like that. Mishabura seems to sound like he's being makel because it's a suffix d'Rabbanan, and then it's a sham. Yeah, like Rabbi Slansky saying that the Shartzian says it's pshita, it's mutter because it's a suffix d'Rabbanan. Akapanin lalocha, we're makel on the shayla. But the Meister of Moshe is our Rabbi. Moshe Feinstein is our Rabbi, and Moshe Feinstein had the Mishabura, and he passed the night like so. So a person on a Friday night now is a new Shiloh. Now he has a choice. Should I take the cup with the water, and then I'm pouring from the urn into a cup, which we saw yesterday, doesn't bother us that it's klisheni, and doesn't bother us that the water only got to 185, and doesn't bother us that he's going to pour it into the chalent because he'll take off the chalent and pour it in and mix it around and then put it back. But now we have a new Shiloh. Maybe I shouldn't be allowed to do that because it's the old Shiloh of the Gemara of Pina mimechem lemechem. Look at this. I'm taking water that was in one pot. Now I transfer it into a cup. And I go from that cup, I'm going into the pot. So there was a shlav in the middle where this pot, Kivyachol, was never on a fire. She was never on the fire. The urn was on the fire and the chalent was on the fire. But here it's a pina mimecham to mecham. So in the middle, I went and I put it into a conduit in order to get back onto the fire. But there is an aspect of a pina mimecham lemecham over here. And so now, even though I told you that the Mishabura is mekel, but Ramosh is machmir, so maybe I would prefer now to go and take the chalent and bring it to the urn and pour the water straight from the urn into the chalent. Why should I get into the Shiloh? Yesterday I said it's a Shiloh that's not so glat lechatchila about having the steam go on your urn, even though I said that the diavad if steam goes on your urn, so the steam by the time it gets to your urn is not going to really be so hot anymore. And the nitzak chibur we said is not a problem. But now both of these are not ideal. Both these options are not ideal anymore. So which one should I prefer? Should I prefer this one and be saimich on the Mishabura that pina mimechem lemechem is mutter, or should I be saimich on the other one, the one, the one that we just spoke about, that I'll just take my chalent pot straight to the urn? So what would you guys? That's such an interesting idea, but it's not going to work, Rabbi Khan. Rabbi Khan says go and use the chalent lid, but it doesn't really work because it doesn't matter because the water was never in the chalent lid. It's not like this water has left, gone into a new pot. The chalent lid had other food in it, you could say. No, and this is one of the reasons again why the Svardim, they have that bag of water inside fishel. You understand what I'm talking, right? I think you do this fishel, if I'm not mistaken. You take a bag of water and you leave it in the chalent pot, and then when it comes time to, you see that the chalent is burning out, so you just pop a hole in okay, I'm not getting involved about ripping bags, but like upon the Svardim rip bags anyways. So I'll just pop a hole inside of it and Shalom Al Yisrael, then I'll have the water that was cooking in a Kli Rishon, and now it's going to go inside, and then there's no shilas. So what's Lemaisa? Which would you prefer? So Lemaisa, there's a svara that when we get to Shem, we're going to learn the Sugya of Pina Mecham Mecham, and we'll see that there's a very big makar to this, but there's a svara that this has nothing to do with the Shaila Pina Mecham Mecham. Pina Mecham Mecham is like I described. You're taking the challah, putting it into a new pot, and taking that pot and putting it on. Then it looks like this is a whole new thing. But if you're using a cup as a conduit to get from here to here, no one sees the shlav in the middle. The whole idea of Pina Mecham Lamecham is that people see over here like, hey, this is l'chayra, he's cooking a pot that was never on the fire. What's this all about? So then in people's minds, there was maybe a whole new Maisa cooking taking place over here. And just like this pot was never on the fire, so then I'll come to put some other pot that was never on the fire and I'll go and cook. Mashengen over here, everyone understands that what I'm trying to do is get the water from here to there, so then maybe that's not nechlal in the sugya of Pinam L'meicham. Now, I don't know if this is such a pashut svara. I saw last night that the Sefer, the wonderful Sefer Orchos Shabbos, brings this svara down from Rav Shmuel Orbach. And it's a gewaldige svara maybe, but even if you don't hold of it, what's the difference? The Mishabur make a legamre on it, and over here we're dealing with a suffix d'Rabbanan. So I would probably prefer that than to bring my my challah to the urn and possibly getting involved in at least the chumrah of basar b'chalav. No, Fakir, he's saying that you should, no, the opposite, Rabbi said. He's saying that you should take the challah and you should take the cup, that you could be makel and take the cup. I'm saying, l'chayr, that's what the person should do. So Allah might say that's what you should do. If you want to fill it up, you take a cup, you take the challah off, you pour it in, you mix it around, you put it back on, and you enjoy your challah. That's number one. And Mitzvah Hashem will expand on this another time. And now, Baruch Hashem, we finish the sugya of a challah that's burning out. And I hope this Shabbos that if it comes Negei L'maisa, you'll know what to do, but I hope it doesn't come together this nice. Akapanim, that's number one. Number two is that I want to tell you something incredible that the Olam, we didn't, I'm saying myself, the Olam, us together, we didn't realize how big the shilas that we spoke about a week ago when we started Bishul and we were discussing the sugya of non-fire related heating methods. So we spoke about microwaves, we spoke about the shemesh, and we spoke about all these shilas. That's, okay, how often a person is getting like a microwave on Shabbos. Anyways, usually whatever microwave he's going to have is just being used to reheat something. So if it's just going to reheat something and you want to know, can I reheat something? There's probably a makom to be makel. Usually when we're dealing with a microwave, we're talking about reheating. We were discussing if you're actually cooking in the microwave, but usually you're dealing not with a shilah bishul because you're just reheating something. And therefore you're dealing with the shilah of electricity, al yidei goy. So if there's a makom for a chayli or something, or a tzarech gadol, says makom mekel, that's the shilas we dealt with that are maybe not synageya. But very interesting is I realized afterward that we have a very, 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 very negaya shaila. I spoke about this with Rabbi Feigenbaum and Slansky. We have a very, very, very negaya shaila, Rabbi side, of a bishul process which doesn't use a fire, which the way we came out the other day is going to be totally in a machlekes with Shlomo Zalman and Ramosha. That according to Shlomo Zalman, any bishul process that does not use a fire is not a bishul deraisa. It's only going to be a bishul derabana. And according to Ramosha, it will depend if it's something that's commonly used to cook, so then it could become a tolda. You know what? This is extremely negaya by side. Induction, cooking with induction heat. Induction heat is mamish the way of the future, Rabbi Markowitz. It's mamish this is what's going on. I don't know if they have it yet in Africa, Rabbi Markowitz. Do they have a wheel there? Did the wheel come there yet or not yet? No. Okay. I'm sorry. So Agapan, they have something. He has like a barbecue. Nowadays they could have like a stove that has fire coming out of it, right? And now you even have a very special type of stove. Okay, very special. Mr. Shem, one day you'll come to a different continent, and on this stove, it's a glass top. That's how mine is, and it is unbelievable. It doesn't get hot. It doesn't get the unbelievable thing. The first time my wife said, I said, you try it first. You put your hand there. And it really doesn't get hot. And the way it cooks the heat is not with a red hot coil under the glass. It is not like those electric burners that has a red hot coil, which is, of course, an H. It is push it in electric current. And we did our homework, and it seems to be, it basically is pashit an electric, basically an electromagnet, which is some non-fire at all. It's not an aish at all. It's not a toldus aish. It's not an elamai. It's the most normal way of cooking in the world today. This is totally, according to Rabbi, this will be a perfect example that according to Rabbi, it's normal and therefore it should be a tolda. And that's it. It's going to be a tolda of Bishul. It's a normal way of cooking. It'll be Nisidaraisa to cook like this. According to Shlomo Zalman, it's going to be cooking on day electricity. Cooking on day electricity is not an Aish. So it'll be, Shlomo Zalman says it'll at least be a drabanan. Interesting why it should be a drabanan. Okay, maybe it should be mutter gomer. But akapanim, it'll be a drabanan. So it comes out an unbelievable thing. If somebody would have a shaila now of it could be a negative gazach, right? In a hospital, or whatever. Somebody has a shaila now and he wants to know the guy has to cook. No, it's mamish negative gazach. Everybody say he has a case where sometimes there's a chayla in the house, there's an old man in the house, or whatever, or something like that. He wants to know to go and cook for a Jew. In a case where it comes up on Shabbos. So we always know that in cases, even when there's a terim, you have to do kal. And okay, obviously there's Bishul Akum Shabbos. I'm not getting involved now. Let's say it'll be a case where it's not an issue of Bishul Akum, whatever the case is. But once we're going to have induction, then you have to remember, according to Moshe, nothing has changed there, and you didn't make it any better. But according to Shlomo Zalman, you made it better. Right? This is basically the stove I have, like Rabbi Blinder is asking. I'm sorry, like Rabbi Blinder is intruding on my kitchen. Right? This is mamish the stove I have. This when it hit me like a rock. It's unbelievable. According to this, if a person would have a shaila on Shabbos, he should prefer to use an induction over using some other methodology, some other heat source, because according to Shlomo Zalman, it's not a deraisa. It's an incredible idea. Yeah, it's still going to be an Issa Rabbanan, according to Shlomo Zalman, Rabbi Khan. But Akaponim, it's not going to be an Issa deraisa. It's just an incredible thing. The bad is hot, because basically it sends an electromagnet through it. And if I say it's like the third or fourth year of college, I can't explain this to you guys. Yeah. Like upon him, that's number two. Number three, before we start the very geschmack sugya today, I want to talk about is someone asked, where's Rabbi Leibovitz? Is he still sleeping? He's in LA somewhere. It's probably for Klape Bishul Akum, Rabbi Slansky, it'll depend if it's something that's Nechel Chai and with all the rules. And it could be for a Chayla, there might be Kallus. So I'm not dining mitzvah that Shayla. He's davening Lasik and Rabbi Leibovitz. Rabbi Hershel, you tell him later that we mentioned him. He asked the Shayla the other day that L'chayra, there's a stira in the Igros Moshe. And again, it's a little bit of a sugya that we didn't learn yet. We didn't learn Shehiyah, we didn't learn Chazara, but this is how Rabbi said, when you learn Bishul, this is how you get the full picture of Bishul. You mention things now. In a week from now, we're going to mention things again. When we learn Shehiyah, we're going to mention things that we spoke about in Bishul. And then after the whole month, you have the whole entire picture. You get the whole entire gamut in the sugya. So don't get nervous if we're mentioning things of Chazara and Shia, and you're not getting that aspect out of Saif. You take it shlav, and you take each piece, and then by the end, the whole picture fits together like a hafla dika puzzle, meridika picture. But he asked a very good question. We said yesterday, or 2 days ago, that Rav Moshe, Zechrani Levracha, was on the team of the Poskim that held that when water hits Yad Saledis, then already there's no more problem making it go from 160, we'll call it, up to 212. Right? Is that not correct, Rabbi Greenhouse? Sipping my tea. That the Rav Moshe was of the opinion that if you go from 160 up to Derech Agav, all the other pages that I don't mention your name, it's because for some reason these are the guys that were chosen on the front page. What's the pshat? Because you guys come first to the shir. What's the yichus that or Manny Grossman? What, Manny? You pick and choose over here who gets to be on the page over here? I don't know how this works exactly, but don't think I don't like these guys any better. If anything, I like them worse. That's why I say their names the whole time. So nobody should think that it's nothing to do. I love all the other guys also. Don't get nervous. Right? Don't get nervous. A special siyata d'shmaya. Really? That's a shot. Wow, it's unbelievable. Wow, amazing. Oh, it's unbelievable. Wow. I mean, the Fisher brothers is not a kasha. It's because they have 43 computers around them. So, Halachos of Bishul he asked a very good question, Rabbi Leibovitz. He asked me that there's steer in Rav Moshe. And I saw that there are some Sfarim that actually asked this question, that it's a steer in Rav Moshe. Rav Moshe, we said, was on the camp of the Paiskin that held that if you go from 160 to 212, it's not a problem. And we spoke out, halacha l'maisa, that there are fun and that for sure you can make all the chule. But Ramosha basically said that once you had Yatzaledis, but okay, not Yatzaledis by 110, of 120, of 130, because you have to be chayshit that that's not called cooked. So not 140, not 150, but whatever is the highest Yatzaledis by, let's say 160, maybe 170, whatever it is. So then that's Dunsky. Game over. Once you hit 160, 170, so now for sure you can go up to 212, said Rav Moshe. That was the Shita Rav Moshe. So he asked the Kasha that l'chayr there's a tshuva mefurish in Rav Moshe, not like this. Elamai, you'll say it's like some frakrach and a tshuva, in a different volume or something. Maybe Rabbi say in the same exact tshuva, Rav Moshe has about 20. Just on Bishul alone, he has a over 100 chuvas over here. But he has 42 chuvas of Bishul to Rav Shimon Eider in Chelik Dalet Siman Dalet. The one we quoted, I think, was later on. I think it was in, I don't remember what he said, but it was later on here. This one over here is the first tshuva of those 42 tshuva. Oh, that one's the 24th tshuva. Thank you very much. That one's the 24th. This one's the first one. So I doubt that he forgot Rav Moshe from the first tshuva to the 24th tshuva. Yeah, and I don't think Rav Moshe, forgot. No, I don't think so. What's my raya that Rav Moshe didn't forget from the first tshuva what he said to the 24th tshuva? So there's a few rayas. I mean, we can't go through all the rayas, right? But Rav Moshe, one time, somebody came to Rav Moshe, said Merdeka Maisa, right? And there was a Yid, I don't know, his name was what's his name? Maybe Faskowitz. Was that his name again? Maybe Faskowitz. I can't remember the whole story. But this story obviously is not, it's really not a riot or what. I just want you to know the story anyways. But this Jew, his grandson, once came to Rav Moshe. And this Jew, Rabbi Faskowitz, not Rabbi Faskowitz, it was, no. It was with the F. I forget the name now. Avram Yafin, the ultimate Vardik's grandson. I forget the name. No, that's what it was. It was Avram Yafin. Sorry. It was about to Avram Yafin. And he held that he had a chiddush that you're allowed to take food straight and put it onto a hot plate. Moshe got it didn't hold like that. And this Yid held you could take food straight as long as it's previously cooked and put it on a hot plate or put it on a blech, which we'll talk about. It's a machlekes, but most of the places can hold down. Moshe held not like that. You can't take a schnitzel and put it straight onto the blech. This person came to Rav Moshe and he decided to ask that question to Rav Moshe. And Rav Moshe didn't even know that it's his grandfather or anything. He walks into Rav Moshe and tells Rav Moshe, he asks him, are you allowed to take food straight from a hot plate, straight from the fridge that's previously cooked and put it onto the blech? You're not put it straight onto the blech. We're going to talk about these rules in general. Maybe not a hot plate, say a blech, whatever. It's not the point right now, Rabbi says. It's just the point of the story. Like upon him, he told him, so he said to him like this from Moshe. He doesn't even know who this Jew is. He tells him, there's a Yid named Avram Yafin. He holds, that wasn't one of the names of the garment of Paiskin that everybody here heard of. Says, yeah, he holds that you're allowed to take food out from the fridge as long as it's previously cooked and put it on a blech. So when you have Ruach HaKodesh, it's hard to believe that you also forget things. And the raya that he also didn't forget things is that somebody came to Rav Moshe and he had asked him a question. It was a shaila grada in Hilchos Yichud. It's got a shaila in Hilchos Yichud about, he had come to him many years earlier about a shaila. And Rav Moshe said a certain kula had to do with an adopted child. And it was a bit of a complicated shaila, a bit of a complicated child, right? And so the person at the time, he recorded Rav Moshe. He came into Rav Moshe, and when Rav Moshe spoke to him, he recorded Rav Moshe so that he could listen back to Rav Moshe to play back the recording to himself to write it down. And then years later, this person was writing a kuntris on Hilchos Yichud, so he wanted to ask Rav Moshe the shaila again, and he wanted to make sure again he had it clear because it was a little bit of a controversial psak. So he came into Rav Moshe, and he recorded Rav Moshe again. And then he was going to, compare the recordings, right? He said it was such a pella. He listened to this recording, and then afterward he listened to this recording, and Rav Moshe said the exact same words and the exact same marmakaimis and the exact same emphasis and the exact same. I have a hard time believing that Rav Moshe forgot from the first tshuva to the 24th tshuva. It's doubtful. Akapanim. So in the first tshuva over here, it seems to be a stira. Rav Moshe says over here that are you allowed? Now, this gets us into a little bit of a complicated sugya. So I won't go out of sight. I just want them to know, Klape, what's the shaila on Rav Moshe? And I saw other svarim that they bring the question of Rav Moshe. Over here, Rav Moshe has a whole tshuva over here that he writes that if, let's say, they asked him, when it comes to heating up water in an herb, okay? Oh, I'm sorry. That was the first tshuva. I'm sorry. That's the one we read. I'm sorry. The one that I want is the 24th tshuva. Excuse me. That was the one we read. That we said that Rav Moshe says that you go from 150, from 160 to 212 is not a problem. In the 24th tshuva, Rav Moshe says like this: Ma'u shir Michael ben Drusai gabi Mayim. What's the shir of Michael ben Drusai for Mayim? And we know that he says l'chayra it's either chatzi or a third. So Rav Shimon asked him, how are you going to figure out what's a third cooked of water? Or what is it? 60 degrees is Michael ben Drusai. It's like a weird thing to say. Right? 70 degrees is Michael ben Drusai. It's a weird thing to say. Or it's 105 degrees is Michael ben Drusai. This is the question he asked. So he said, and it's very hard, Rav Moshe writes, to figure it out. And Rav Moshe goes on to say, we have to say that Yad Soledis is Michael ben Drusai. So Rav Moshe says that Michael ben Drusai is Yad Soledis by. Right? It's hard to steer in Rav Moshe. Rav Moshe over here says Mefresh that what's Yad Soledis by? Michael ben Drusai. We said over there that Rav Moshe holds once you get the Yad Soledis by, that's called Mavashal Kol Tzarchai. Right? So, how do these two things stem? Right? Now, the emes is, I don't know if there's at all a kasha. Right? I don't know at all if there's a kasha, because the truth is that maybe that's good for what Rav Moshe is trying to say. That once you hit Michael ben Drusai, when it comes to water, there's no more Maila, but Rav Moshe is just dining from 0.0 upward. But maybe Rav Moshe means that once you get from Michael ben Drusai to Mavashal Kol Tzarchai, there's absolutely no difference. In other words, you can have a mitzias of where we agree with Mr. Ben Drusai. There could be a point. Let's say you have a food that everyone agrees to Ben Drusai, but we have to wait till even Ben Drusai would eat it. So who says Bichlal is a stira? Maybe all that Rav Moshe means is very simply that to go from 0, when is it called cooking? To get to Michael ben Drusai. Once I get to Michael ben Drusai, so now we agree that at that point it's considered fully cooked. But there's no shlab beforehand, because even Mr. Ben Drusai has to have a point of where it's called considered cooked. Once we get to the point, in other words, let's say, I can imagine that you can have a food like this, right? Let's say you have a food that even Mr. Ben Drusai won't eat. Obviously, in the halacha, we don't have these musagim probably, right? But water will be the musig. Let's say you would have theoretically a potato that once you get to a half cooked, so then only at that point Mr. Ben Drusai eats it, and only at that point, and then even at that point we also agree, and that's what we eat it. So who says Bechlal is a stira? That's Bechlal what I was thinking. I don't even know why there's a stira at all. But the truth is that that's not the real answer. The real answer is that the kasha fights with nishtan. There's no kasha at all. Rav Moshe is discussing the gzeira d'Rabbanan. He's discussing a totally different case. Rav Moshe is discussing the gzeira d'Rabbanan of shehiyah. The gzeira d'Rabbanan of shehiyah says you are not allowed to leave food on a open fire unless it's a certain amount cooked. A Michael ben Drusai cooked for Ashkenazim. Why? Because if it's not going to be a Michael ben Drusai cooked, so then we're afraid a person is going to stoke the fire in order to get it, that it should be ready for the night. That's a gzeira d'Rabbanan. We're afraid a person is going to stoke the fire. So therefore, the Ashkenazim hold, for example, that once it's a half cooked or a third cooked, so then the person's not nervous. And then you could leave it eat on an open flame. But Mashenkin, if it's only under a half cooked, under a third cooked, that's already a machlekes. So then we're afraid if you're going to leave it on an open flame, so then you're going to come to stoke the fire. That's what the Ashkenazim hold. Is Memela Baisai, we're dealing now with a shaila that, let's say, for example, the Svardim don't agree with that. The Svardim hold even when it's a half cooked, so then it's still a person is going to be nervous and he's going to stoke the fire. And the Svardim hold, even if it's fully cooked, you still need a blech. Not like the Ashkenazim. Svardim hold, if it's fully cooked, you still need a blech. because otherwise he's going to come to monkey with the fire. The Sfardim hold it's fully cooked. Now, Rabbi, once something is fully cooked, you can't be over on Bishul. Of course, you can't be over on Bishul once it's fully cooked. So then why can't the Sfardim leave it on an open flame? The answer is because that has nothing to do with cooking. That has to do with the psychological mindset of the person. Is he going to go and stoke the flame to make sure the food goes from 100% to 120? So the Sfardim say, yeah, he won't be over on Bishul. Fine, he won't be over on Bishul, but he'll be over on Avara. So it's nothing to do with Bishul. And the Ashkenazim hold not like that. They hold that once you hit a half cooked, he's not afraid anymore. It's going to wind up cooking on its own. The Mela, what was Rav Moshe talking about? Rav Moshe was trying to figure out at what point are you allowed to, let's say, the Sfardim, let's say, for example, right? Or let's say those that want to be machmir, klape, the shiloh of the Sfardim, right? At what point are you allowed to leave water on a blech? Do we say that when water gets to Yatzaleh this bite, is there still a stat that he's going to stoke the fire? The answer is sure. Why not? Even though we said that Yatzaleh this bite is fully cooked, but do people like to have sometimes the water hotter? For sure. Avada, we saw that at 170 degrees, it's not enough for people. They want it to be up to 185. It could be they don't want it to 212. So if you want it done, is it called that I cooked the water from 170 up to 212? It's not called you cooked it. But do I have to worry that he might want the water hotter? So that could be. And therefore, for Ashkenazim, at Yatzaleh, you don't have to worry. And for Sfardim, you do have to worry. It's nothing to do with if it's called halachically bishul. The biggest raya is that if you have a fully cooked cholent, Rabbi Isai, Sfardim hold, even a fully cooked cholent, you can't leave on an open fire. Why? You're certainly not going to be cooking anything. It's fully cooked. The answer, it doesn't matter. We're not trying to figure out now, is it cooked? We're trying to figure out, is the person going to go and stoke the fire in order to make it more cooked? So if you did understand me, good. If you didn't understand me, even better, because the Mitzvah Shem, we're going to come back to it one day, but there certainly is no steer in Rav Moshe. Did anybody understand me? Give me some thumbs if anybody understood me. Levi Markowitz, what's right? There's no thumbs over there? You only have one thumb? What happened? Oh, okay. Right, Bolton, glasses list. No? 4 eyes. Where's the thumbs? Thank you. Okay. Okay. Now let's start the sugya, Rabbi Isai. Thank you, Rabbi Rosenberg. Rabbi Rosenberg knows that Rabbi Kallus needs chizik. He writes to me very clear. You definitely gave me chizik. It's not easy, Rabbi Isai, talking to a computer screen. I don't know if you're understanding me or not, right? I don't, it's not easy. Sometimes you guys freeze over here and I see just these blank stares and then I realize, no, he's not frozen. So, it's harder to watch? Really? What does that mean? When is the Kallus opening? Oh, you're in a greenhouse. All right, let me get invited. Is Rabbi Isai? Now let's start. It's a geshmaki sugya. Now we're going to have some. Let's go, Rabbi Isai. Let's chazir the shitas that we saw yesterday. And now, Bez Hashem, we're going to have a good time. Oh, we're going to have a lot of fun over here, Rabbi Isai. What halacha l'maisa nafkamina is klape what we discussed yesterday. Yesterday, right? The Kallus never closes, Rabbi Fiskers. We never, ever, ever close. Never. Okay? Akopanim is, where did Rabbi Silberman go? He disappeared? What's going on over here? What's going on over here? What's going on over here? All right, let me get back. As Rabbi say, now we're going to start the very geshmak and nafkaminas of the sugya of what we discussed yesterday. Let's make a little bit of a sikum. We saw yesterday there's a world war. The world war is when it comes to a liquid. Do we hold yesh bishalach or bishal b'davar? And now at this point, I hope the terminology you're more familiar with, so I could talk faster without explaining it each time. But do we say yesh bishalach or bishal b'davar? Or do we say ein bishalach or bishal b'davar? And that once it's cooked, it can't ever be cooked again. And we're talking even if it gets down to cold, is the machlekes rishonim. The Rambam, the Rashba, now let's say the names and the faces a little bit to get the geshmak and nafkaminas. The Rambam, the Rashba, the Ran, they are all makel. They hold, if you have a chicken soup, listen to a meiser by side. The Rashba would tell you have a chicken soup freezing cold inside the fridge. You want to take that chicken soup and you want to heat it up on Friday night. So you can't just put it straight onto the hot plate because then you have chazara issues. But it's not bishul. You take an upside down pan, you put it on the hot plate, and boom, put this huge chicken pot. Unbelievable. Imagine this, Rabbi side. You can have chicken soup on Shabbos lunch. The Rashba had chicken soup for Shabbos lunch. Why not? Right? The Rashba took the chicken soup out of the fridge. Right? The Rashba's, the Rashba could add a fridge. The Rashba had there's a story about the Rashba that he had a malach that went in front of him once and saved him from a guy. So the Rashba had a fridge also. Upon him, the Rashba took his chicken soup out of the fridge and then he put it near the fire, not on the fire, because if you put something on the fire, so no, like we said, that could be a ganze maisa, that could be an Isser Chazar. Then the Rashba had a hot chicken soup on Shabbos morning, right? Unbelievable. Because ain't Bishul B'Davalach, even if it went down to cold the gamre. Right, even the gold the gamre. Oh, thank you, Rabbi Danziger. But upon him, the Rashi and the Flamadala that you saw in the Marmakaimis, the Rosh, the Tor, and so is the Psak of the Shulchan Aruch, are machmir. And they hold not like that. They hold yesh b'shalach b'shal b'davar. And that means that once it went under Yatzaledis by, and I guess you have to be machmir what's called Yatzaledis by, once it goes down to under 170 or 160 or something like that. So then the halach is, yes, it's called bishul again. And you're not even allowed, if you have a warm chicken soup, according to these shitas, to return the warm chicken soup to the pot, to the fire. That's the machlekes we spoke about yesterday. What's an nafkamina? Nafkamina is that taka on Pesach. We had a whole mice over here on Pesach. I think I spoke about a story like this in the Kallus once, but we actually had the story on Pesach. On Pesach, we had one of those. We have that kettle. We have like a Pesach kettle. It's not a kettle. I mean, we have one for Pesach, like not for Shabbos. Like everyone knows what a kettle is. A kettle an English word? Did my wife ruin me again? A kumkum, a kettle. What's it called in English? In American? What's it called in American? The Zach was macht the Wasser heiß. Wird das geriefen? What's geriefen as Zach? The potty? No, the potty is something else. No, not an urn. The urn is a kettle. Thank you, Rabbi Mata. So the kettle on. This is a weekday kettle, nothing to do with. So one of the children, by mistake, was in the kitchen, and they were just they were washing up on a Friday night, right? The Chinik, yeah, they were on Friday night. They were doing it, and when they were just putting the things, so they took the kettle without realizing, and they put it to the side. The truth is, maybe that was a klisha malach al Iyar, and that wasn't such an issue. And then they accidentally pressed the button. They accidentally pressed the button of the kettle. Once you were there, you see already the chacham of Chazal. Chazal say don't monkey with these things because you're going to come to. So they accidentally pressed the button. So the kid, the child came running into me. They asked me, what do I do? I turned on the kettle. What do I do? So my first reaction was, right. I asked him, was it misasek? Were you even aware of what you did, B'chal? He said, no, like he does realize he pressed it. He doesn't know what happened and why he pressed it, but he seems to have pressed it. Okay, we're not dealing now with the age of the child. The ikar right now is to get into the Maisadek. So he was trying to, he wasn't sure if it was misasek. He was like moving things and he was like, he was holding it with the thing and like his fingers were playing. That's how he said it. He moved it over and his fingers were playing. So he pressed the button. So he wasn't sure if it was called like a misasek or a shaygig. The way it sounded to me was probably misasek, but let's pretend it's a shaygig. So he wanted to know, what do I do? So my first thought was, Bain if it's shaygig, Bain if it's misasek, quickly turn it off. Not maybe with your fingers, right? But turn it off with the elbow or something. Even though that's a shiloh, that's called shinoi. But there are shitas that hold it to shinoi. And what's the alternative? The alternative is that the water is going to keep on cooking. If the water cooks, so then he's going to be over on Bishul Deraisa. If he goes and he turns off the water miyad right now, so then what was he over on? Just the electricity. All he was over on was turning on the electricity. No, turning on the electricity. That's one isser, but that isser is done. Elamai, now he can turn off the electricity. And if he doesn't turn off the electricity, there's going to be another isser that's going to come out of the bishul of the water. So should we tell him just go turn it off with a shinoi? I knew it's a shiloh that's called a shinoi, but beside the shita that's a shinoi. Why? Because Adam himself. Maybe we tell him go and do a small avera so that he doesn't come to the big avera of bishul teraisa. That was my first thought. And then I realized, wait a minute, it's not a gayel b'chal. Why? Because Rabbi said there's water in there. Why is there water in there? That means there was water in there before Shabbos. He didn't accidentally pour inside water and then turn on the, right? So there was water there before Shabbos. What's that water if it was there before Shabbos? And that water was obviously water that somebody already cooked up in the kettle and just left inside there. So then I have here now the Rambam, the Rashba, the Ran, that they say, they hold that it's not, it's all the freezing cold now. It's true. That's a machlekes rishonim. But that means that there's respectable rishonim out there, the Rambam and the Rashba and the Ran, that they would tell you didn't do any bishul at all. Ain't the bishul like a bishul davalach. Elamai, you were over already on one halacha. What were you over on? You're over already. You're over on the halacha of accidentally turning on the electricity. Okay, that's done. So what are you going to gain to turn it off now? You're going to stop it from recooking. So it's not called recooking. According to the Rashba, according to the Rambam, according to the Ran, it's not called. So this would be one nafkamina of this machlekes. Certainly b'diavad, we are not going to tell him to turn off the water. We're going to be saimach on the Rambam, the Rashba, and the Ran in this case, and say that it's not called cooking. That's number one. Number two is that, can I use that water now? I told him, don't turn it off. And then I started declaring, can we use that water? Right? And it's very convenient. Sometimes you only have you have only a certain amount in the urn. We have a Pesach urn, which is smaller than the regular urn that we usually have for during the year. So this would be very convenient. That urn will save for whatever. And now I'll tell anybody who wants a hot tea after the meal or whatever, now's your chance. It's hot water. So could you use the hot water from this urn? So let's see. The Rashba, okay, mitzad echad, he did an issa d'rabbanan of, let's say, maybe an issa d'rabbanan of electricity. It's a shaila of electricity, it's d'raisa, it's d'rabbanan. And we weren't able to figure out if it was just an electric current. And it seems to me now that when he turned on the kumkum, it might be a d'raisa, because turning on the kumkum, I think, has a red coil. So he did a d'raisa. So now that would be a shoygeg d'raisa that the goyin was makel. And the Mishnah says, b'shasat chak, on a Ma'aseh Shabbos, there's a makom to be makel, to be using this water, right? But here we have a little bit of so it was getting hana from a Ma'aseh Shabbos. No, that was one shaila. I told them, let's not use the water, not kedai. But at least we can clear it in a little bit of a different fashion. We can clear what happens. There's a Ma'aseh about a few years ago, one of the other Rabbanim got the shaila, and he told me the shaila. He told me that some lady was for years and years. He told me that I gave a shir in his shul. I gave a shir in this Rav shul, and he told me that afterward a lady came and said, I gave a shir in the shul. I was talking about it was about Bishul, and one of the examples I just gave was I keep on talking about my chicken soup and whatever. This person went to the Rav and said that he thinks that of Kallus is Sataut. Rabbi Kallus made a mistake. So what's a mistake? He said that because the Svardim, this is what the person said. The Svardim hold that you could take a chicken soup out of the fridge and put it onto the hot plate. The Rav looked at this. If anything, that for sure makes sense. The Svardim. The Svardim are the most machmer when it comes. They didn't understand what could possibly be the mistake. They tried to figure. He said his wife has been doing this for 16 years. His wife takes out the chicken soup. I never even heard of this. That's why I was making fun of it before. That his wife, they have chicken soup on Shabbos morning. He says his wife for 16 years, that whenever in the winter she wants to have chicken soup, she'll take chicken soup out of the fridge and she'll put it on the hot plate. How did such a toys happen? So they were mavara, and what happened was, because it came out that Rav Kallus made a terrible mistake. He was telling this Rav, because we do this. It came out that there's a shita klape chazara, which we're going to talk about, that the Rav Avadja might have a shita, and you see his picture there in the background, the Chavrus of Rabbi Elbaz, right? That he has a shita, at least klape chazara, that you might be allowed to take a schnitzel out of the fridge and put it onto a hot plate straight and not worry about chazara. But that's a svar in chazara. So they made a, Xer Shava food, previously cooked. She knew you can't cook water on Shabbos, right? But she thinks, okay, chicken soup is previously cooked. What's the difference between chicken? So the truth is that, in the Rambam's house, he did the same thing. In the Rashba's house, he did say, it's quite a funny thing, actually. This person, his last name is Maimoni, and he is an anical, or anical of the Rambam. The great, you see how Mamish, how the Rambam, Mamish, all the way through his generations. Unbelievable. So Akapanim, this lady did like her alta, or her Saba, Rabba, Rambam, and the Rashba, and she was taking chicken soup out of the fridge every single Friday night, every single Shabbos day, and putting it on to the hot plate, which of course the Shulchan Aruch would tell you, Yesh Bishul Achar Bishul, B'davar Lach. So now let's don on that Shabbos, let's say she did it on that Shabbos. Could we eat that chicken soup? Could we eat that chicken soup? This is a shaila. Are we going to make a Ma'aseh Shabbos when you know that the Rashba and the Rambam and the Ran, they would actually do it l'chatchila Are we going to make a Maisa Shabbos on such a thing? Do we say that the Shulchan Aruch, Ugrada, very interesting, he was an anical of the Rambam. His last name was Maimoni. She was an anical of Rabbi Yosef Kairoi, right? Rabbi Yosef Kairoi, half of the fella. Yeah. The only thing is, Mamsha big stira, right? So it's interesting. She was the one, not like that. Akapanim. Rabbi Yosef Kairoi, yeah, intermarriage. Yeah. She was Maisa being over on the words of her great grandfather. He was doing exactly like his great grandfather. So what's halacha l'maisa? B'di evet, could we be soymich on it? It's like I see, like Rabbi Vogel saying over here. First of all, we have here that she's a shoygig. She's an oimer mutter. That's number one. Number two is that we have the goyin on shoygig in general. That's not. I'm sorry. Number one is we have the goyin in general on a shoygig. No, that's number one. Number two is that if they would be Ashkenazi, so then we would have a whole shaila. Why is it that on a chicken soup, we are machmir in the first place of ourselves not putting it back onto a hot plate, right? Barring the Indian of Chazara, right? But why are we as Ashkenazim? We saw yesterday, it's a big machlekes. Is it because we be'emes agree that it's mutter, just we made it a safeguard that if it's totally cold, you'll come to cook raw items. If you go like that, so then the entire issue that we're dealing with, even according to the Ramaz, the Rabbanon. So who says that's knesses on the Rabbanon? B'shoigeg, the Mishabur says knesses shoigeg the Rabbanon. There's no knas. But if they're Sephardi, so for Sephardi, it's all different shaila, because this lady's a Sephardi, and Maran Beit Yosef Shulchan Aruch Paskin's not like that. That it's an Isser Gomer to a Raisa to return this chicken to, but they're shoigeg. No, but the shoigeg Sfaradim don't have the goyin. Sfaradim don't have the goyin. The goyin has a kula. The Shulchan Aruch doesn't have that kula on shoigeg. So Chaya for Svardi, if she put that chicken soup onto her hot plate on Shabbos morning, so she doesn't have the kula of Shaygig, and she doesn't have the kula of the Ramah to learn the Ramah that way. So the only thing she has is, do we say that since there's a machlekes rishonim, we don't make a knas? So it's interesting. I saw today, excuse me, Rabbi say, I saw today that the Chazayin Avadia, that's Rav Avadia, Chelik Dalit, in the 422nd page, Rav Avadia wanted to be makel on the knas. Based on this svara, he wanted to say that l'maisa saif. It's machlekes rishonim, something the Rashba is going to do lechatchila, the Rambam is going to do lechatchila, the Ram is going to do lechatchila, and Rav Avadia. He brings down 40 other rishonim that also held like that. So he says when you have something that so many rishonim are doing, Avada, you're not allowed to do it. And Avada, it's an issur to do it, and it's an issur to raisa. But if you did it, we're not going to make a knas. I could put him for an Ashkenazi, but for sure not going to make a knas. That's no shayla. Because we have another tzad that even though we are machmir and say yesh bishul achar bishul b'davar lach, but it's only a safeguard the way the Chazon Ish learned. So that's part one. Is that crystal clear, my friends and family? Yeah, good. We're all good. Good. Rabbi Moyle, your hand is not yellow. Your thumb is not yellow. What is that? A brown thumb? What is this? Some like racial thumb? What is that? What is going on over here? All right, I don't know. So that's number one. Number two, Rabbi say, is very interesting shiloh over here. The shiloh's like this. How much time do we have? Yeah, we have time for the shiloh. We saw yesterday that there's basically a machlekes over here in. Let's go for one step back a second. What's the lumdis? We'll say first in the machmirim. I think the machmirim are very understandable. What's the lumdis of the machmirim that they say? I think everybody understands. When you take water, you cook it, and now the cooking went away. So it's nisbatel, and this is what the Tila LeDavid says in Sivkot Lamed Gimel. I mentioned this yesterday. He says once it's cold, it's nisbatel, the original cooking, because the whole idea of the cooking is the heat. When it comes to liquid, the entire cooking is the heat. So if the heat is gone, it's nisbatel the cooking. Okay, right? Davi's kasha is the Prima Goda Master kasha in Reish and Dalid. Okay, but what about something like a liquidy ketchup? Right? What are you going to say when it comes to it? Let's say a real liquidy ketchup. When I was growing up, on Pesach, they had something called catsup. Remember this? Who remembers this? Anybody remember this? This is like dreadful looking creature. Yeah, Rabbi Grossman's asking the question on soup, but it's the same question on a. It's more it's a more understood question, Rabbi Wolf, on a ketchup, which is actually thick to a certain extent, even not real thick. That we'll talk about. But okay, I'll go pun him. There's an obvious difference, between a sauce and water. So, the prima gadim, what's the lumdus of why you say, according to the Machmirim now, yesh bishul achar bishul, because in this battle, the original cooking process. But Rabbi side, when you take a look at sauce and you take a look at soup and you take a look at a liquidy ketchup, then you know over here that's absolutely not in this battle, the original cooking process. The water before, when you put the chicken inside, tastes one way when it's cold. You taste it now, it's a whole different Matthias. Mashenkein water, Verstetzach, it's the same exact thing. It tastes the exact same. So then we could be mechalik tremendously, says the Prima Gadim. So this question is very difficult. In other words, why do we say yesh bishul achar bishul? So Rabbi Khan says light plug, and you should know, Rabbi Khan, you were mekaven to the melech of all of Klai Yisrael, Rabbi Yashiv. I asked him this question, but you should know it's a very hard thing to understand. I had this written down by me that I asked Rabbi Yashiv the question, and he said light plug. But so what does it mean light plug? It means that therefore it's now only the Rabbanan. Does that mean that if I want to reheat the chicken soup, it's only the Rabbanan? I just told you a whole story and told you the chicken soup is the Raisa. And Rabbi Elbaz is going to tell you that the Pashtus HaPoiskim, certainly of the Svardim, as they take on, that all liquids, and the Shulchan Aruch is not Mechalik. The Shulchan Aruch talks about any liquid that was, he doesn't talk just about water. Very hard to believe. It's not a loy plug on a deraisitic level. It's very, very, very hard to understand. The same Svar by bread and Teuchen. That's a little bit different, Rabbi Rosenberg. Upon him, but the Maisa, what can we do? It's one of those things that it's hard to understand, but you have to have a muna, dafa binamina, and mutavel mamina, ataka, water, and chicken soup is the same exact thing. And in both of them, yesh bishul achar bishul. And if you don't believe that, you are non-religious or you're the Rashba. But that's l'chayr. That's number one. What about the other direction? What's pshat in the Mekilim? What's pshat in the Rashba? Now we have the other part we don't understand. What's the pshat in the Rashba? I have cold water. I make it boiling hot. Now it went back down to cold water. It's the same ice cold water. It tastes the exact same. What's the difference? And just in order to say that, because I didn't want to have any, lushin that was a sheker. So I told my wife if she could do it for me today. So she cooked me up hot water. She let it go into the fridge. And this is the water I've been drinking the entire year. Right? It's ice cold water. This water that I've been drinking is ice cold water that was previously cooked. It tastes no different than the water that I tasted yesterday. Absolutely different. It's the exact same thing. So what's the pshat? So there's a drashas haran. We spoke once about the bacteria and the minerals and corona free and all the other things. But the Maisa, the drashas haran in the drush ches, in the Hakadama Shlishis, obviously I'm not a Baki in drashas haran. I saw it brought down. And he brings down over there that no, it's not true. There's a metziistic difference of water that was once cooked. Water that was once cooked to go, he says it also al derech musar. When you have water that was cooked and now it went down to cold, it is faster to get it cooked up again. In order, if you have water, that's what he says, right? Rabbi Birnbaum is surprised by this. He's quite surprised by this. You can see on his face, right? But I'm also quite surprised with this, but that's what he says. He says, if you have water, now I couldn't figure that one out, right? It's a little bit difficult in our way of heating things up. If anybody wants to do this scientific experiment, we'd appreciate this. But it's, if you have water that was previously cooked and now it's cold, if you want to cook up that water, it's going to cook up faster. Deal with it, Rabbi Isai. Akapanim, the Ramah made a pshara. The Ramah made a pshara like we saw yesterday. And we saw what's the pshat in this Ramah's pshara. So Rabbi said yesterday we saw it's a machlekes between the Mishnah Brura and the Chazon Ish, right? Rabbi Hershoff, it's not stretchy time yet. We saw yesterday it's a machlekes between the Mishnah Brura and the Chazon Ish. Mishnah Brura said that which we are noyeg to be machmir on the shaila of yesh bishul achar bishul b'davar lach is midoraisa. We're machmir. The hainu wasn't mean nagu. It means nagu that we take on that when it is taka cold, it's stan in the gamre, which I'll explain in a moment. When it's cold, it's stan in the gamre. We take on, that's called a bishul deraisa. We take on like the sheet of the Rashi, like the sheet of the Shulchan Aruch. If it's warm, which we're going to define this today, Mitzvah. If it's warm, so then we take on that now a bishul achar bishul once it's warm. but we take on in the oifen that it's cold, that it's a bishul deraisa. That's how the Mishnah Berurah learned. And this lashon Rabbi say, if you look in the Magen Avram in Reish and Gimel Sivkot Lamed, yesterday I said from the Mishnah Berurah, that's our Rabbi, but the Magen Avram is absolutely mefresh. The Magen Avram says, "L'didan." I'm reading you now the Magen Avram. L'didan d'sfirle d'aser l'chamimai. We hold you're not allowed to take a chicken soup which is cold, us Ashkenazim, when it's cold and heat it up. Aser l'chamimai mi de'oraisa. So he says, so it's aser to tell a guy. And this is what we referred to yesterday, that the Mishnah Berurah was very, very not into letting a guy heat up that chicken soup. And then we saw, but maybe you could be saimech if it's a shasat chak or something like that. But the way we take on is that it's an iser deraisa to heat up cold chicken soup. That's the sheet of the Magen Avraham. I mentioned yesterday. Others that go like that, like Leital goes like that, the Mishnah Berurah goes like that, and there certainly are others that go like that. The Nishmas Adam brings two tztadim. Right? And yesterday we said over the Chazanish. The Chazanish says, we make a gzeira, we don't want you to go and be makel, so it's a safeguard. We have a giloid from Goyin Rav Moshe Feinstein. The Goyin Rav Moshe Feinstein, Zeichel Tzadik Levracha, in Kama of these short shuvas, seems to have taken on that it's only an Issa D'Rabbanan. And then we're going to see big nafkaminas. It's only an Issa D'Rabbanan that really, even if it would be cold, the gamre, you'd be allowed min Torah to go and heat it up, because really the Ramah Patzkin's like the shita that ain bishlach or bishul b'davar. Just we make a safeguard. Listen to Rav Moshe. Rav Moshe says, Hacha, I'll tell you what he's talking about in a minute, but I first want to read you the Lashonis. He says, Hacha, this is in Chayil Dal Simenayin Dalad Nois Hey. Hacha chumra the yesh bishul achar bishul b'davar lach hu chumra be'alma. It's a chumra. Shekdoyle Paiskim really old. Ain bishul achar bishul. The kain achras Ramah. The Ramah holds ain bishul achar bishul in the davar lach. I were machmir if it's freezing cold. Says Ramesha, noyigin. The rack is down in the gamre. We're noyig that really it's like a chumrah. It's a chumrah. But Ramesha says a lashon over here that it's a hachra. That's the difference. Ramesha seems to have learned it was a hachra. It's a very weird hachra to say that we really are machriya, that it's mutter, but we act as if it's a deraisa. It's a weird thing. Kipshuta, what Ramesha means to say is that we are machriya, that it's mutter, and that we have a chumrah on ourselves. And our chumrah is just not to do it, like the Chazanish learned, like a safeguard, like a mechsi. What's nafkamina? Nafkamina is what Ramesh is talking about over here in this tshuva. Very important. Ramesh is discussing over here that, let's say you have ketchup. Now, Ramesh takes on that ketchup is a davar lach. Ketchup is considered liquidy. And therefore, he has an issue of taking ketchup and putting it onto, let's say, something very hot. We know, Mitzvah Shem, we're going to learn about this. There's something called the davar gush. If you have a boiling hot piece of potato kugel, it's called the davar gush. And we say it doesn't get affected by being placed into a kli sheni, into another kli. A davar gush keeps its heat. So Moshe is discussing taking ketchup and putting it on your, let's say, potato kugel, boiling hot piece of potato kugel. Okay, are you allowed to take ketchup? So Moshe says, we have a problem because ketchup is a davar lach and it's freezing cold. He learned now. I know what Olam is thinking. At der Nishkat Heinz in die Zeit von Moshe. Heinz gibt die Sache, was Menschen was warten Tage. Die beste Sache kommt zu einem Mensch, was Wahltag ist a größer Musse für die Menschen from Heinz. Was damals ich wenn he, right? And he tells us that the best things come to those that wait, and you sit there with the Heinz, and then you run out of patience, and you go up there with the spear and try and take out all the ketchup. Now, everyone knows what I'm talking about. In Taka in Eretz Yisrael, the awesome ketchup, everyone knows what I'm talking about, and the red squirty one and whatever, right? Very thick, that awesome ketchup, right? It's very, very thick stuff. And it is a little bit difficult to understand for Moshe that would be called a lach. It was a previously cooked liquid, and now it's considered a cold liquid. It's a big chiddush. Moshe, I'll read you his lashon. It's a big chiddush. Because Moshe says, he says that hayim mutar litain ketchup be'Shabbos al basar roteach, because it's two chumras. Chumra number one is davar gush. Like I said, that's not so pashut in halacha that cooks. Chumra number two is really we paskin yesh bishul ain bishul akar bishul. This is the Ramesha. Really we paskin ain bishul akar bishul b'davar lach. and that's the chra. So therefore, it's just a chumrah. So Moshe says over here that it's a double chumrah. Double chumrah, we're not going to be machmir. Gush is a chumrah, and ein b'shalach bishul and a davar lach is a chumrah. Double chumrah, we're not going to be machmir. That's where Moshe is a chumrah. In the middle of the tshuva, you see from Moshe, obviously he's taking on that ketchup was liquidy. Now, we don't know which ketchup they showed Rav Moshe. So we don't know if Rav Moshe, anyways, it could be if you would have a ketchup, which was a thick ketchup, Rav Moshe would have said, nah, thick ketchup, there's no shaila, that's a davar yavesh, and that's for sure you're allowed to take and put on a davar gush because it's previously cooked, and it's like a schnitzel, there's no shaila, right? So that's not relevant right now, Rabbi Isai. It's not as relevant right now. And the truth is I got it once asked Rav Elyashiv, and Rav Elyashiv said even on a runny ketchup, he wanted to say that a runny ketchup is a chiddush. I'm not saying it's not, but he wanted to say even a runny ketchup is called in halacha a davar yavesh, big chiddush. He held that lach means it's got to be like a soup, something that's mamish lach, like a real lach, right? Gravy's really lach or whatever. But a ketchup has a certain, even the loose ones have a certain thickness to them, and it's clearly nicker here. The original Bishul process. Okay, I don't know about a hot sauce, Rabbi Fiskus, because I don't want to get personal here. I don't know exactly how your wife makes a hot sauce. And Greek yogurt? What's a Greek yogurt? What? A Yavani yogurt? What is this? Some type of what is this? Greek? What's going on with it? What's inside a Greek yogurt? What's he doing with this Greek yogurt? What do you do with it? Is it thick? Let me see. Open it up. Don't be cheap. Let's see. I don't know. Let's see. We spoke about opening these on Shabbos. We wanted to say that it might be mutter because it's not as connected. It has a certain what's going on over there? Huh? What's going on? You got a spoon over there? What do you got over there? Shoo. These Fisher brothers, they eat good, these guys, no? Ooh, making everybody jealous, Fisher boys. Upon him. I don't know. That's probably Rav Elyashiv. That seems thick enough. Let me see. Take it out a second. Take it out. Don't be shy, Fisher boys. No, take it out. Let's go. Let's see. Pour it a little bit. Yeah, that Rav Elyashiv would have considered, I think, to have been Greek yogurt, as everybody knows what Greek yogurt is. That it is something that is considered with a little bit of a thickness. That's probably the machlokes for Moshe and Rav Elyashiv. Rav Moshe would consider that to be a lach, and Rav Elyashiv would consider it to be a yavish, because yavish in these inyanim is not dependent or determined if it pours. Rav Elyashiv held that it's each one of the Mader Shita. Rav Elyashiv held it depends on if there a certain thickness to it that you see mamish a change that occurred from the bishul. And Mashain came, the Ramesha is going to learn that no, something that's considered a liquid is if it pours. But Akapanim, you see from Ramesha a different reason to be makel. Says Ramesha, I'm makel anyways. Why Zak the guy Ramesha? Zak our Rebbe Ramesha, I'm makel because it's two chumras. The Hainu, he learned that the whole entire chura of the Ramah is a chumra. If it's a chumra, then he's on the camp with the Chzain Ish. That a vada of a person would have to have on a Friday night a chicken soup, and he wants a guy to put it on, a vada can be makel. Because the whole thing that with machmer in the first place is because why? Because a chumrah, it's a safeguard or a chumrah ba'alma. But really, we Ashkenazim paskin a bitchel lach bitchel b'davar lach. Just if it's cold, so then we are going to be machmir. We're going to be machmir. A chumrah. So by side, it's moiridik the velt the mishtabura l'shitasai. Rabbi say, what's the Mishnah Berurah going to hold if I take a boiling hot potato and I put it on gravy, according to what you just heard? Cold gravy. What's the Mishnah Berurah going to hold? Mutter or not mutter? Rabbi Lieberman says not mutter. What does Rabbi Moshe tell us? He tells us mutter, because potato is a chumrah, davar gush is a chumrah, and yesh b'shalach habishul is a chumrah. So double chumrah, we're not machmir. You know who argues on that? The Rebbe Mishnah Berurah. At the end of the sif over here, to take a piece of meat, and you're putting it on roitiv, says the Mishnah Berurah, that was nitztan in the gamrei, that's now cold, like the Ramah Paskins in Tesvav, says the Mishnah Berurah, oh sir, like the Mishnah Berurah, because you're cooking it, kidei klipe, moiridik of the Welt, nifla ad the moy, this is the machleke. according to Mishnah Berurah, the only way you'll be allowed to be makel on ketchup is if you're going to learn that, like Rabbi Yashiv, that ketchup is called thick. And if you don't learn like Rabbi Yashiv, the Mishnah Berurah is going to tell you don't put your ketchup on a potato. We halacha for sure we're going to be makel on ketchup on a davar gosh memanashach, because memanashach sveik at least. First of all, maybe Rav Moshe's right, and therefore it's only a chumrah. And second of all, even if it's not a chumrah, maybe ketchup is not called a lach. Maybe ketchup is called the yavesh. So that's the first nafkamina of this crisis shaila. But I see that the time is up, and I wanted to say one word of chizik to us on the parsha, like is our derech. But for sure, Rabbi say, das is zicher a simcha rabba v'amru chula. Simcha rabba v'amru chula. Now you're one step closer to knowing all of Bishul. You are more happy people. You are more happy people. You're more happy people because you know more Torah. You know more Torah. This is where the gold is. If you don't like this, so then go and join Esav. Eat his chalent. This is where the gold is, right? This is where the gold is. This is what Hilchos Shabbos is, Rabbi Yisrael. This is the best of Hilchos Shabbos. This is where the gold is, Rabbi Yisrael. Hey, look at Reb Shlomo Zalman, Rabbi Yashiv, mit ketchup. Could you imagine if a guy would watch us right now? They're trying to figure out if the ketchup is thick or the ketchup is thick. And we have such intense pleasure talking about ketchup. There are no games, Rabbi Yisrael. This is Shreino Matay Chakeno. This is Achim El Torah Kadosha. Moira de Welt. Baruch Shalaya Sani Goy. Moira de Welt. Rabbi Yisrael, let me just say, Danny, if you don't mind, just make it into one separate share. Danny, do I have 7 minutes? Not ice cream. Do I have 7 minutes, Danny? Is Danny left us? Okay, Rabbi say. Make it into a separate share, Danny. You know, I haven't invited our listeners from Torah Anytime in so long. So I welcome all of our visitors from Torah Anytime to my office in Yerushalayim Iyar Kodesh. And the Mitzvah Hashem, Bez Hashem, we'll be back together in the Beis Medrash. I wanted to say one quick thought on the Parsha in Parshas Emor, in Perek Chav Aleph, in Pasuk Chav Aleph. There's a pasuk that is it's somewhat painful. It's somewhat painful, this pasuk. It says, Kol ish asher boi mum mizera arna kayin. If you'll have somebody who's he's an anikel of arna kayin, and he has a mum, and the Rambam goes, it's based on the Gemara in Bechiris, and lists off all the different blemishes and imperfections and defects that a person can have that make it that he has what's called the mum. He's lo yigash lahakriv. He is not allowed to be makriv in the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, bisman hazeh, you have nothing to worry about, because when Mashiach comes, he's going to heal all the mumim. Even a lefty in halacha is called a mum, because his right arm doesn't work. But you have nothing to worry, and a lefty is not allowed to be makriv. But you don't have to feel bad, all you lefties, because when Mashiach comes, so then Eliyahu Navi is going to heal all of the people that have mumim, and then you'll be allowed to be makriv. But this pasuk seems to be a little bit not fair. It's a little bit unfair. He has a mum. The poor guy walks through life. He has a problem with his ear that unfortunately every time he walks down the street, people look at him, people probably laugh at him. And in halacha, what does it have to do with my ability to go and be makriv? Because I have a part of my ear which is malformed and that's a defect. It's so unfair. Why should he not be allowed to be makriv? Fakert, if anything, everybody understands how humble a person is, that Nebuch has a defect, that has some type of an imperfection. Hagufa, because he had to be soivel. You know, children are not very forgiving when it comes to mumim. Children are not very understanding. And this poor child had to endure years and years of cheering and being made fun of. You know, trauma, being traumatized for his imperfection. And what do you tell him? What punishment does God give him? It's not enough that God made him without an ear, but now he gives him la yigash lahakiv v'sisha Hashem mumbai es lechem elchayv la yigash. It's a chayr not fair. I'm afraid to ask the question on the Torah Kadosha, but the chayr it seems to be a little bit not fair. I remember years ago I heard a tape from Rav Avigdor Miller Zechreinu Livracha. This is years ago when there was something called the tape recorder. Right? If anybody wants to know what's a tape recorder, this is a tape recorder, right? I don't want to take out the record player right now. But the tape recorder, and I was listening to a tape of Victor Miller, Tzadik Livracha, and he addressed this question. Victor Miller said that it's true. It's true. It's not fair. It's not fair. Why shouldn't he be able to be makriv in the Beis HaMikdash? And isn't he the most humble of people? And isn't he somebody bedavka fakir that should give him at least a chance, right? You know, lahavdil, we see that a lot of times you have a person, he's got imperfections, and you see him working in this place and that place, and you know. But Victor Miller said a Moiridik side. He said the Beis HaMikdash, that's the mokim of Spitz Kiddush Hashem. That's the makim that all of the people in the world are looking at, not just the Jews. People came from all over to see the avodah, to see the perfection, to see the malchus, to see what it is, the place that the Shechina comes down, and that the Rebbeinu Shalom is kivyachol, the presence is totally felt over there, and people look. And what would happen if somebody would be there and he's being makriv and he has this strange ear? He has a problem, Rahman al-Islam, with his ear. He has a problem. He's missing a limb. He's missing even a pinky. So then everybody would focus on that. And they would look at that. And you all know Rabbi Isai, okay? And we'll be honest. You all know when that person is working behind the counter and it's awkward and it's a little bit uncomfortable and you're afraid to look at him and you're not sure if you're not supposed to look at him. And there's a certain awkwardness. And there's a certain feeling of where there's something there, some unpleasantness. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. And therefore, in the Beis HaMikdash, we can't have that. In the Beis HaMikdash, as Victor Miller said, appearance is taka mensch is a mensch, and the reality of people is that we'll lose respect to a certain extent for the authority and the mitzias of Beis HaMikdash. The Beis HaMikdash has to be a mokum of perfection, and if people were all tzaddikim and people were all capable of just seeing to the neshama of a person, then maybe, but that's not how people are. The Hainu. Victor Miller was teaching us a tremendous insight in the value of us, right? Kimoi, that the kohen is someone that represents God and represents perfection and represents the avodah, and therefore he has to even look perfect, albeit not fair. But the message is clear. The nimshal is us. The nimshal is that you're a yid, you're a religious Jew, you're somebody that wherever you walk, you represent that institution called God. You represent that institution called Klal Yisrael. You represent that institution called Yeshiva Bacher, religious Jew, Orthodox Jew, right? Ultra-Orthodox Jew, right? You represent that, and that's your name, and you have to act a certain way in public. Just recently, in the whole matziv of what's going on, later in the Welt, in the matziv of Corona that we're in now. So then people have a certain, lost a certain sensitivity to Chilul Hashem. And it is a tragedy, She'en Kamayu. As Rabbi said, you are guests. We are guests in a foreign land. We are guests. And you have to act a certain way when you're a guest in a certain land. You represent God. You represent the Jewish nation. You represent Orthodox Jews. And I think sometimes people forget that you're pushing the guest over here. You know, we live in a world where every liberal idiot gets to say his view and his opinion and whatever. So we think to ourselves, okay, so I can also act the way I want. You know, if the liberals can act like that, so then I can also say whatever I want. You're a guest. You represent God. You represent the Jewish people. And you don't have the right to act the way you want. And you don't have the right to say, I could say what I want, and it's a free country, and I could do what I want. And you're not a liberal fool. A liberal fool represents the institution called idiot, right? You represent HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You represent God. You have to act a certain way always. You have to act perfect. You have to be perfect. It's a different set of clothing, Rabbi said. Said that David HaMelech, Adonai David, when he became the king, the clothing of the Malchus didn't fit him. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a nace and he grew into the clothing because he has to fit the clothing of Malchus, because the Malchus is to look a certain way. You are the Malchus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You have to act a certain way. You have to look a certain way. There was once a Rosh Yeshiva in Yerushalayim Iyar Kodesh that lost his lost his mind. He was a pair. He was a Rosh Yeshiva. He was one of really the major known Talmidei Chachamim. He was somebody who Taka went to. He's known a lot by the Kaisel also. He was a person that was very well liked by people. He was an incredible Talmid Chacham. He was known as one of the big Talmidei Chacham in Yerushalayim Kodesh. Nebuch, he got I don't remember if it was a stroke or a tumor. I don't remember what it was. I think it was a tumor, Rahman al-Islam. And he basically lost his tremendous chachma. He lost the tremendous chachma when they had to do the operation to take out the tumor. He lost a lot of his chachma, unfortunately, Rahman al-Islam. But he was a functioning, healthy person. But he went from being a Rosh Hashiva, from being somebody who was saying an Iyar shir to the big Talmidei Chachamim, Yerushalayim Kodesh, to basically not even remembering Aleph Beis. And this went on for about a year. And after a certain point already, so his family, they felt his tsar that he wasn't able to he didn't know where he was holding, but they felt that even in basic conversations, he wasn't understanding basics in Chumash, and he wanted to understand. He didn't remember that he was once a Goyin. He didn't remember that he was once one of the great Goyinim, Rosh Hashivas of Yerushalayim. But Lamaisa, he did want to partake in the conversations at the table, and it was painful. But they made a decision. I think they went to one of the Gedolei Yerushalayim, and they told him, send him to Cheder. If Rabbi Kiva could do it, so then send him to Cheder. And they put this Goyin, this great Rosh Hashiva, back in Cheder. And here you have this great, incredible Rosh Hashiva. And there he is, sitting, this 50-year-old man, sitting around the table, sitting around with the kids. The Magid the Rabbi felt a little bit uncomfortable. He knew this great tzaddik, he knew this great Talmid Chacham. But what could he do? And he taught him Torah. And they taught him the Aleph Beis. The kids laughed a little bit, and he didn't understand. They were laughing at him. No, it came time for recess. And at recess, they tried it out on the first day that they were going to send the father to the Cheder. So the father went to the Cheder on the first day. And at recess, they were going to pick him up. The recess, the little break that they have, they were going to pick him up. When they came to recess, they saw this great Rosh Hashiva with a long white beard. And there he was in the sandbox with the other kids, right? And fighting about something in the sandbox, arguing about something in the sandbox with the kids. And they couldn't bear the pain. They came over to their father. They said to their father, Ta, you're a Rosh Hashiva. You're a Rosh Hashiva. Look at you. What are you doing? Sitting inside a sandbox, playing with the children, fighting with the fights that they fight. And Ta, you're a Rosh Hashiva. You don't belong over here. It's pasnish that you should act this way. We have to remember, Rabbi Isai, we wear the clothing of that Rosh Hashiva. You are the Rebbeinu Shalom's representatives. You are Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael can't just say, I could do it. Well, they can't tell me, they want to tell me not a minion. They want to tell me not a mask. I do what I want. I can do what I want. A free country. A free country, not a free country. But you're a guest in that free country. And you represent the Rebbeinu Shalom. And if you represent the Rebbeinu Shalom, you represent Klal Yisrael, you have to act a certain way. Rabbi Isai, I want to tell you one last story. There is an Arab that walks up and down my street every single morning. He's the street cleaner. Every single morning he walks up and down my street. This Arab, on the first day of Corona, when I was davening on my roof minyan, on my roof shtibel upstairs, right? So like whenever I'd seen him, I wave. I give him a smile and I wave. And so on the first day, he was walking down the street and I was at my roof and he walked down the street and I waved at him. My children came over to me and they said to me, why are you waving at him? He's a guy, right? And at that moment, I realized that I had failed in my chinuch. Didn't fail everything in my chinuch, but at least in this aspect of what's a Jew. I told them the Gemara says not like that. The Gemara says that Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai, no one ever managed to say hi or shalom in the street to the guy before. Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai always managed to say hi to the person before he would say hi to Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai, even a guy in the street. Right? Even a guy in the street. Why? Because Jews are good people and Jews are decent people and Jews want to make other people smile. And that's what a Yid is. It's not just to make other avada. There's no question that a person does his chesed and is stuck with Yidden. But a Jew is supposed to wave and smile. Not supposed to be friendly with a guy. Not supposed to have any shaykhs to the guy. Not more than a smile and a wave. But a Jew is supposed to wave at the guy when he's walking down the street. So you know what my kid said to me? My kid said to me, Ta, you think he cares? He doesn't care bichlal. He doesn't care. You think he cares bichlal? I've been waiting for 1 month to tell you this story, Rabbi Isai. He said, Ta, you think this guy cares at all? And he waved up at me. He's just being, my kid said to me, Ta, he feels bad for you. He thinks you're strange. I said, I do what it says in the Gemara, and I'm for sure okay. It's but it's true. Deep down, I thought to myself, who knows, right? My teenage Israeli Haredi children, they know everything, right? They know more even than the Israeli cab drivers, right? So Taka, maybe they're right. Maybe Taka, this guy doesn't care at all. So I want to tell you, a week and a half ago, he was walking down the street. And like every morning, I waved at him. Right? He looked up at me and he said to me, "What lama?" In his broken Hebrew, the Arab, said to me, "Lama ata hayachid barachov?" Why are you the only one in the street that says good morning to me? I told him that's a very good question. I don't know. I said to him, but I'm going to deal with that question. Ani atapel b'zeh. Okay. The next day at Mincha, the next night at Mincha, on the Gag Shtibel, after Mincha, I screamed out to everybody that I want to make an announcement. The announcement is, I'm mevakesh from every single person that when he sees that guy walking down the street, please wave at him and smile at him. Okay? Just say hi. Please do it. Right? If you don't want to do it for him because he's a guy, do it for me because I'm the Rav and it'll make me happy. Right? So what happened? The next morning, he was walking down the street. And when he walked down the street, so that from like mamish, every rooftop on Rehov Mutzafi, every single rooftop, everybody waved at this guy. Right? Every single person in the street waved at this guy. Some people were going like this, some people were clapping, and every single person waved at this guy. You know what, Rabbi say? I'm not going to tell you. I don't know if at the end of this story, do I know if at the end of the block, I'm not going to tell you, you know what the end of the story was? We saw him crying at the end of the block. I don't know if at the end of the block, I don't know if he was that day deciding that he wanted to bring Rahman al-Islam a bomb, Chas v'Chalila, and he decided to not detonate the bomb. I don't know if one day his son, grandson are going to now be a lover of Jews and they're not going to hurt Jews and whatever. I do not know, but I know one thing. I know that Rehov Mutzafi was very, very clean that day. Because when he cleaned up, oh, did he do a good job. And I also know that I did the right thing because I am a Jew. And a Jew is somebody that has a higher standard and he has to act a certain way and he has to look a certain way. And you know what? Even in my own country, even in Eretz Yisrael, a Jew has to be a decent person. He has to be someone that is not trying to be different and trying to be hurtful and trying to be antagonistic. And I can do what I want. A Jew is somebody that there's no mum in him because he represents a Kadosh Baruch Hu. He represents a Kadosh Baruch Hu. He represents Klal Yisrael. That's a tremendous, tremendous lesson, Rabbi Sai. Dailech Hakima Baramiza. I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. Dailech Hakima Baramiza. I get in Shabbos and Yitz Hashem. Rabbi Sai, tomorrow, 5 o'clock my time, 10 o'clock in the morning, your time, just a 2-minute vote on me. Quick chizik for myself on the parsha. A quick chizik, whoever wants to join. And Baruch Hashem that we were zeicha to steig and steig and steig this week together. Hashem should help us, Rabbi Say, that we should be zeicha in this week of Hoid, in this week of Kavod, to be back together in Yerushalayim Iyar Kodesh, the Kar of Mamish. Shabbos. Unmute my holy brothers so that I could say good Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Shabbos, Rabbi.
Ali Rosenberg, why do you go incognito until me? What do you think?
Shabbos, Rabbi, thank you.
I was on today.
It's one good Shabbos. I'm going to see you tomorrow. There's no games.
Rabbi Zerk,
Yeah, Pesach Sheni. Make sure you don't say Tachanun, Rabbi Say.
Shaggy, what's the shit?
Rabbi Mincha.
What?
We don't say
Tachanun today?
I didn't hear. I didn't hear.
Today by Mincha, do you say Tachanun?
The thing is not to say Tachanun at any chance when you're not able, when there's any havening not to say Tachanun, the meaning is not to say Tachanun. This does not apply to Abikid, because Abikid never says Tachanun anyways. So this is referring to the rest of you.
Till a week after Shavuos.
Sorry, there's no back in the wire, nothing.
Why only till a week after Shavuos?
I'm sorry, Tezvav. I'm sorry, Tezvav.
Thank you.
Tezvav.
Thank you, Rabbi Rosenberg.
Shabbos, Rabbi, I have to turn it off.
I love you. Goodbye, Danny. Everyone.